FightHype.com here with my man Alex. Alex, can you see me okay? Am I good?
See you good.
Perfect. So it's been, a week or so since Thomas Dulorme had his nice little comeback victory. He looked good. He looked great and everything. We actually talked after the fight, about the performance and everything. But before I talk about the future plans, I wanted to ask you real quick, what's it been like working with Thomas? I mean, I know you've worked with a lot of other guys, for an extended period of time, and there were moments where, sometimes they didn't. Not that they didn't buy into your plan, but sometimes they would just stray from, kind of what you were trying to do. How's it been like working with Thomas so far?
Great, man. And really, it's like you said, we worked together before for like the Kareem Mayfield fight. So he was part of the Robert Garcia stable of fighters that we had back then, with Maidana, Rubio, Dorado, Brandon, Mikey. So for him to come in, the transition was I think pretty smooth for the fact that he's already been through it. So he kind of knows what we do and how we do things. So as far as that went really well. And the fact that he's campaigning again at 147 pounds, it's a lot different. You get to do a lot of different things, a lot of as far as physically. So, but he's always been a tremendous worker, great work ethic, never complains, and as you know, as most I like to do things at the crack of dawn. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the things aren't the easiest things to do, and so and it's very cold here in Vegas.
That sounds crazy.
So, but hey, man, get comfortable being uncomfortable. It's 6 weeks, 7 weeks of hard work and. But it paid off. It was good. Good numbers as far as what I expected him to do in the fight. Threw about 400 punches in 6 rounds, and that's what we're looking to do. That's really what this whole camp was really about, is getting these guys to be able to throw 60, 70 punches around.
Now I know we kind of touched on it after the fight about how you're kind of. You're taking a little different approach than the traditional, boxing trainer might take. Can you kind of, you don't have to give away all your details, but just kind of touch on, what you're doing differently?
We're just trying to innovate things a little bit in boxing. It's like I've said, I think we're getting left behind, and we're the sport that's been around the longest. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look at every other sport, boxing has been around forever.
Right.
and everybody is and especially in combative sports, everybody's moving past us. And I think that it's because of the mindset that if we don't start bringing some of that mainstream sports ideas into boxing, it's going to stay archaic and it's going to stay antiquated and things are going to stay with that whole old school thing. It's got to be out,
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you follow the direction of like what MMA guys did, as you know, I started with that,
mm-hmm.
With Arlovsky and all those guys.
Yeah.
So you don't. I want to bring in like when I play sports in baseball, you have a fielding coach, you have a batting coach, you have whatever it may be. But even in football, you have an offensive coach, a defensive coach, different looks and different It's inconceivable for one person to know everything when it comes to fighting. Mm-hmm. There are so many different aspects to this sport. So you can't have one person sitting there and expect him to know everything to know about that particular. It's not. I mean, it's like anything else. There's specialties in every other profession out there. Whether you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're a mechanic, engineer. There's specialties, and there's a reason for that.
Or even in sports, you have a batting coach. You have, know what I mean? Right.
A pitching coach, a guy who specifically. So I wanted to bring more of that kind of a concept to it. Mm-hmm. So that way, there are no head anybody's. Mm-hmm. It's a more of a team concept, and our approach is to, have a defensive guy, have an offensive guy, and we have our conditioning and our nutritional and diet and stuff like that. So, at this level, at this elite level, and you see the kind of talent that's out there. So you need to have every little bit of advantage, mm-hmm. and I just think it's due diligence, really. Mm. I mean, I've seen this over. I mean, I've been doing this almost 18 years now, and I've seen these fighters that have these weaknesses or have these habits, and the trainer either doesn't see it or he himself doesn't know how to get past it. Like I said, Amir Khan had so many great attributes and so many good things, but he was susceptible to getting hit with a left hook. So if we would have, you got to fix those things. And if one trainer isn't open enough and can't put his ego aside and let another trainer sit there and say, hey, we need to make an adjustment. Manny Pacquiao forever, since I've been there, was always susceptible to getting hit with right hands. Always. Nothing changed. But because of his volume and the power and the explosiveness, he was able to negate that and take it away. But as he slowed down and as he changed things, they never corrected that problem, that flaw. And that was the coup de grace eventually in the Marquez fight. He kept hitting him after 4 fucking times of throwing the same move. Eventually Marquez, you throw a dart at a dartboard long enough, you're eventually going to hit the bullseye.
Right.
He did. And Manny was never taught how to neutralize that right hand. Amir was never really taught how to neutralize the left. I mean, that's why they, So if I don't have another set of eyes that are equally, I mean, it's not about who's calling shots. It's about getting the fighter prepared to the best of the ability of a camp or a team. So it's good to have another set of trainers, looking. Again, it's not about it's not about stepping on toes or hurting feelings or anything like that. It's about trying to get your fighter to the best possible position that you can. So to have an extra set of eyes to look at things, to break things down, to analyze things, and to let's make moves this way. Let's get he's coming this way. You have to have a trainer that's open to those, and you got to put your ego aside, and you can't afford it. It's just not at this level. Not when you see the kind of talent that's out there now.
Has it been easier to work in that environment? Just because I know, when you've worked, and not just you, but a lot of strength and conditioning coaches, when they work with, boxing trainers, sometimes, the boxing trainers, they don't want to sacrifice the boxing training to do the strength and conditioning. And sometimes there's a butting of heads constantly. Has this kind of been easier or more difficult? I mean, you're almost adding more eyes. So would that make it more difficult?
It's easier because, I've had a winning formula for a long time as far as the strength and conditioning. Everybody that we've worked with from, way back from Corrales to, we've had 4 losses, probably 3 or 4 losses in the 18 years we've done this.
Wow.
And 2 of them are against Floyd.
Right. True.
We're not doing too bad with our ideas of how to get a fighter ready. But just like I can't presume to know everything about exercise and nutritional science. A trainer can't presume to know everything about fighting, since it in itself is a sweet science. So it only makes sense, rational sense, to think that, hey, to have different looks, to have different trainers, and to have guys that are different specialties. If a guy's jab is suffering, and a mitt guy that I know of is known for bringing out a good jab out of a guy, how to know the distance, how to use the hard jab, the straight jab, how to use it as a rangefinder, and then how to use it also as a weapon, as an asset. And so if I have a guy like that, why would I not want him to incorporate that into what if a guy's great defensively? Know how to slip, know how to make angle moves, and then use the jab to counter it, whatever the case may be, whatever. But so you can kind of get the idea. It's just like in I hate to use NASCAR or superbike racing, but you don't have one mechanic working on one bike.
That's true.
You can't expect him to know suspension. You can't expect him to know the braking system. You don't accelerate. You can't expect him to know all that shit, because there's too much. So I can't expect to know everything either. That's why Terry and I have been together 8 years since the beginning of Manny. So it's impossible, because I need her. I need to bounce ideas off her. I need her to tell me where either, hey, the numbers aren't consistent, or I need to know when to make the adjustments. There's things that, you have to, if you want to be successful and you want to go to that, I believe it's an invaluable part to be able to be open to outside criticism. And it's not even criticism. It's just, hey, look, we're going the wrong way. We're moving the wrong direction. He's pulling straight back. These are minor things that sometimes a trainer, doesn't see. One trainer doesn't see.
Right.
Get a guys in there, and if they're cohesive and they work together, and like I said, there are no head trainers here.
Right.
Our job is to get this guy to a world championship.
And I can kind of see where if you have just one trainer, I can see how ego would play so much more of a role.
You have to know that you see it. It's been done. Freddie Roach, it was a prime example of it. There was nothing wrong with what Manny was doing. There was nothing wrong with what Amir was doing. There was nothing wrong with what Julio was doing. There was nothing wring with what everybody was being successful at one point. And they were making weight. They were fighting well. They were putting on great performances. But, I think it's, he's just a product of the media. You put too much on one person and you start to believe what, you become blinded to your own, to the own things that people are saying. Nobody is that great.
Right.
And the only people that suffer are the fighters.
Right.
Because when a trainer becomes more important than what the fighters' needs are, then then I know I have to go in a different direction.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is a young sport with young elite athletes with tremendous physical conditioning and mobility. So if I don't get these young guys that are great mitt guys, that are smart, that are also innovative and see things, and it's an evolving sport too. Things are coming out, as far as strategic wise and this and that, and how to use your advantages in a strategy. So there's a lot of young mobile mitt guys that are out there that can bring out what I'm looking for in a fight. I've been doing this 18 years, and I look at, like, from Eric Morales to Diego Corrales to the Maidana to the Pacquiao to Chavez to Amir. I see all little things that I really, really like about their styles. Mikey Garcia even. So I know what I'm looking to build, and it's just like it's like a puzzle. I'm just trying to put pieces together, a little bit of here, a little bit of there, and I got to find these young, mobile, mitt guys that not only have the physical capability to move around for 3 or 4 rounds and just push and push and push, but also have to be able to see the strategic aspect of this, so we can also apply it come fight night. Right. No, it's a lot of complicated shit, but it really isn't. Because if you played, organized sports before, you're used to having different coaches.
Yeah, I think that's the best example. In just about every, organized sport, there are multiple coaches. There's an offensive coach, a defensive coach in football, linebacker coach, running back coach, wide receiver coach. There's a lot of different coaches that specialize in different things. And boxing is, MMA. You have a jiu-jitsu, you have, a striking.
You have boxing, you have a striking, you have a kickboxing guy, you have a wrestler guy, And sometimes, when you have a jiu-jitsu guy and you have a wrestler coach, that's a great combination there. It's a great combination, man. Those two guys, you get them working together, and you make them working on one guy. And you build a really solid guy, because sometimes the jiu-jitsu guy doesn't know what the wrestling guy's thinking. The wrestling guy doesn't know what the jiu-jitsu guy's thinking. So you put that fighter, your athlete, in those two different positions, and this is how a jiu-jitsu guy looks at it. This is how a wrestler looks at it.
Right.
And now he has two choices to make. Same thing with a fighter. I got an offensive guy and a defensive guy. So defensively, I know he knows what to make the move when this guy does this. And offensively, now you know what to do when he does this.
Right.
So there's, again, like you said, it's not really, it just seems odd because we're in boxing.
It's right. It seems odd in boxing. That's the thing. Boxing's so traditional and sometimes resistant to change, that when you do something new, it's looked at and frowned upon, like, he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
The question is here, who's frowning upon it? Because the fighters aren't.
Yeah, that's true.
Who's frowning upon it?
The media and trainers.
The trainer.
Right.
Because you're not going to be called head trainer. You're just going to be a coach. Just like everybody else. But if we continue, we're being surpassed. We're getting left behind. The fans want to see fights that aren't sitting there a hug fest for 12 fucking rounds.
Right.
Nobody wants to see 400 punches in 12 rounds anymore. You don't.
Right.
I mean, you look at these guys that are supposed to be these guys that go out there and produce high volume and high activity, and all of a sudden you're not seeing the numbers.
Right. They could fight another 12 rounds after the first 12 rounds. Right.
And we're losing fans because of it. So the fans want to see not only these competitive fights, but I mean, if you start looking at the throwback, and it's funny because it's ironic because you start talking about old school, but you look at those old school fighters like the Hearns and the Haglers and the Durans. Chavez Sr., even the Camachos. I mean, these guys let their hands go.
Yeah, they did.
And they brought that shit. And those fans they were big fans. So, I mean, I can only try something.
Right.
And for me, like I said, with Dulorme was a good start. To throw 400 punches inside of 6 rounds is a great start for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that'll transition. Once you get that mental block out of your head that you can throw 60, 70 punches around, the last thing you want to do is start holding and hugging and shit like that. You want to start getting busy. Let those hands go. Let those hands go. It doesn't matter. Letting your hands go creates opportunities. Opportunities create knockouts. I mean, it's that simple.
Right.
And if your fighter is at this level, there's no such thing as luck. You're either trained or untrained.
True.
If your fighter's trained, he's ready to go 60, 70 punches around and bring those exciting fights that people go, God damn, I want to see that guy fight again.
Right, right. Speaking of being busy, I know, again, we talked about this after the actual fight. You kind of mentioned that, what's more important to you as far as Dulorme is concerned is him being active. I'm assuming maybe you guys are already gearing up to get back in the gym and train and whatnot, but how important is activity level when it comes to a fighter, and then how do you kind of balance that with not burning him out?
That's sometimes you're right. That's a good question because that sometimes could be the more difficult part because you just got done doing 8 weeks of fucking grind.
Right.
Nobody wants to get in fucking freezing water. Nobody wants to. I mean, I don't blame them. But this is the business we're in.
Yeah.
So what you do is you just make the adjustments. We don't have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. We can still get up at 8. We don't have to go in there and we don't have to drown ourselves to prove that we can, finish or complete I call them brick, but a session or a set.
Right.
You just go through the motions. I like to focus on other things when that breaks. I like to focus on more of the stretching, more mechanics, more. Throw something in there that when camp does start, it's not such a fucking that going through that whole soreness period or burnout period.
Scott, is that having to deal with kind of the muscle memory, just keeping
exactly.
that? Okay.
Exactly. So hey, I like yoga. I like stretch. So we go to class. I mean, I like. You can't say none of this stuff works.
Right.
Because it's all good. It's all good. It's just how you use it and how we do it and how we keep from getting bored. We don't have to go in the gym and just do the same routine. Hit the bag. Hit the pit. Let's focus on the things that I think might be our weaknesses. Flexibility. Is sometimes it's a tedious thing to want to do, to spend 30, 45 minutes a day stretching, but it's an invaluable thing for longevity. So, those are things that I try to do on the off time. And then hey, we don't get away from the boxing.
Right.
We just go. I just don't want you to get burnt out on it.
Yeah.
I want you to look forward to doing it again. And some of the things that we struggled with in camp, like the training-wise, physical strength and conditioning-wise, just a little bit on it. Try to, like I said, focus on the mechanics, technique, not so much the weight or speed or time. Just sit there. Now we're not on a time clock. Now I don't have to crunch in X amount of time. I don't have to time you for this much. Now let's focus on the mechanics. Let's focus on what's going to do for the next. And more importantly, not be too far away from hopefully getting that phone call that says, hey, you want to take something on a short notice? You want to do that? And say, hey, absolutely. We're available because I'm not going to let them gain 20 pounds.
Right. Keep them. You got to stay ready so you can be ready, basically.
Exactly. So, it's just like anything else, man. You got to be ready. You got to be like a soldier, man. You got to be ready to go to war when they make that phone call. I mean, unfortunately for us, we get a couple of weeks, but it's the same mind. You got to be ready. Always be ready because you just never know when that phone call is going to come.